What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to our Driven Tone segment where I drive, run an errand. In this case, run to the post office and drop off a bunch of loaded pick guards because they take a different box and I'm out of them. So we're just going to run to the post office. It is really hot today and the car has not cooled down yet, but here we go. So here's how this works. If you have a question, get in the comments of this video and ask a question. And then I will look through the comments of this video for the next one and we'll answer that question and use this as an opportunity to get nerdy and dive in about anything. This is an interesting one. I actually took this from another video because we kind of ran out of questions on this one, but this is one of those ones. I'm going to take this question, I'm going to answer it, I'm going to take this comment, I'm going to address it, and then I'm going to ask you a question. And I want to get your thoughts on this. As well as ask me another question for next week. We did a demo on a guitar. This was a long time ago. He says, the sound you're getting from those quote-unquote cheap pickups is almost like you had your pickups too close to the strings. That's why there's no differences in dynamics and the sound is dark. And you have that mess of a distorted sound. Okay. Lower the pickup height and raise up the poles a little, and that thing will sound more clear and defined. I mean, you're a pickup guy. You surely know that stuff. What makes me think you adjusted them that way on purpose to make them sound worse than what they're able to give, so your pickups came in as the clear winners? I have a cheap Ibanez. I suffered these problems too until I set it up, and now they still sound a bit darker and muddier than what a high-end pickup can give, but surely not as bad as was shown here. Okay, this is a great one. So, man, it's hot in here. Okay, so let's talk about this. First, I'm going to tell you how we do pickup demos and how we set everything. Okay, basically, we set the guitar up, if we do a guitar setup, a lot of times I will. But when we do a demo, you got to set the pickup height correctly, right? Like, that's part of the setup of the guitar. So if we're going to do a demo, we're going to do it kind of all the same. Now that's going to be different for every pickup. Some are going to be, 150 thousandths from the string. Some are going to be a little closer. Some are going to be a little further, but you're going to use more or less the same method, quote unquote, to set the pickup height. Which for that, what we typically do is I fret the last fret. We set the neck pickup height to its kind of optimal, and then we erase the bridge, and then I just kind of play with them both until they're equal in output and clarity and all that kind of stuff. You try to get the best that you can out of a set of pickups. Like, that's what you should do. That's what I do anyway. That's how I feel about it. I want to get the best out of it. So we do that, with every guitar, obviously. And yes, I'm a pickup guy, so yes, I do know how to do that, and I do that. That being said, I know a lot of folks expect there to be some sort of baseline or like standard for this stuff, and there just isn't. So when this gentleman, obviously I'm not throwing any shade to him or anything, but I don't know what amp he was using. I don't know what the rest of his signal chain sounded like, so obviously his results could be different, right? So that's why we typically will set everything. I'll set the amp the same way every time. We'll set the amp the same way every time. I'll set the DAW the same way every time, and I'll tell you what that is here in a minute. I'll give you the rundown on that. Because the other complaint that we get is, well, it's not clean enough. Well, you got to hear clean tones, otherwise we don't know what the pickups really sound like. Okay. No, but we'll get into that in a minute. The bottom line is, to get the sound that you want out of the guitar, all the settings, and we just talked about this in another video, all the settings, the amp settings, the guitar settings, the pedal settings, whatever you're using, all have to be set up kind of in a certain sequence, as well as the guitar setup itself, as well as the pickup height itself, all kind of have to be in one line, or in they all have to be set to get the result that you are getting. Now, your expectation of results is going to be different than mine. And so what I have to do when I am setting up a guitar and setting up a demo is I basically have to do one standard within my shop. So I don't know how you're going to set your amp. I don't know what amp you're going to use. I don't know what effects you're going to use. I don't know how loud you play. I don't know anything about you, okay? You expect me sometimes in the comment section to expect that you're going to play the guitar a certain way, and I don't know that, right? So, which makes sense, right? And again, that's not throwing shade on anybody. It's just, we see things from our personal perspective. So therefore, you're going to watch my video and you're going to say, well, that's not how I use a guitar, so that's not relevant to me and it's wrong. So what we have to do is we have to set a standard that we use every time in every video. Basically what it is I use my Princeton, I put all the knobs on 7, and we do the demo. And that will tell us how clean the pickups are, how they can clean up. Now, do they ever clean up? Maybe not, because they're hot. Well, that tells me something. Do they sound muddy in that situation? Yeah, that definitely tells me something. Do they sound clear in that situation? Yeah, that definitely tells me something. If I do it the same way every time. And then on the processing side of it, we don't do any. So basically what we do is I have a Focusrite 18i8 that we set the input gain. You know, you have to set it different for basically, well, actually, now that I have the amp set that way, I don't really mess with the input gain on that very much. But here's what I'll tell you is I set the input gain so that it obviously is not clipping the input to the DAW or to the interface. I don't know where that setting is. Maybe, I don't know, 11 o'clock or something. But I do run a 12 dB pad, a constant 12 dB pad from the Focusrite input to the DAW. That is it. I do know we do that. And then going into the DAW, we make sure that everything mixes down, well, not mixes down, but comes in at about -2, -4, and peaks at a little over 0. But I do that on purpose because when you adjust your levels on your guitar and stuff, you gotta have a little room. So yeah, that's what we do, and we do it every time the same way. So sometimes you're gonna hear a more clean tone, sometimes you're gonna hear less of a clean tone. Does the tone with the guitar clean up with the volume knob? Nope, it does not. Okay, well then that means that these pickups are really, really hot. I gotta take a picture. My air conditioner's not working in my car actually, and we've been fighting it with Audi, and so I gotta take a picture. I'm sitting at a light, and when I stop at a light, the AC stops working. So it is now 96 degrees outside and probably, I don't know, 110 in here. Sitting here at a light. It's ridiculous. Been fighting this with Audi for like, well, not fighting it, we're just trying to get to the bottom of it. I think what's happening is there's an evap recall. I'm supposed to go in Monday and have it sorted out, but it's 100 freaking degrees. And it's making it a little tough to live with. 5,000 miles. Yeah. All right, anyway. So basically we do that all the time. We make that setting all the time. We set it the same way every time. It's really important so that I have a standard, and then that is what I know, that's when I know and how I know what pickups are doing. So if you bring a random guitar to my house, I'm gonna plug it into the amp and I'm gonna set it that same way. That way I have a reference in my house, like in my shop, how things are supposed to, otherwise you twiddle a bunch of knobs and you lose all reference for everything. So it's really important, especially when we're doing tests, to make sure that it's consistent, right? Now, does that mean that when you get the pickups, when you play a guitar, well, that's not the results I got. Mine sounds way better than that. Yeah, it's because I'm trying to put it into a circumstance where I understand what it's doing every time. And we could get into, I could do a whole nother video about what I'm actually doing when I do that, okay? But if you go and watch the last 2 videos that we made about how to set an amp and how to set a pedal, that will give you a relatively good idea. Because what I'm looking for is this. I'm looking for clarity. I'm looking for where the pickups break up. Do they clean up properly with the volume knob? When you drive them really hard, do they just get muddy or do they retain clarity? Those are all things that I'm looking for. And I've established these base settings in my shop to be able to give me a good baseline for that. So that's what we do. Now, my question to you is, yeah, I guess that's all I'll say about that. We have a standard. My question to you is that I want you to answer in the comments when you ask another question for next time is, what do you look for, or what do you expect when you listen to a demo? Because here's the thing. If you send me, don't do this because YouTube will block the comments. If you put links in comments, YouTube blocks the comments. But if let's say you were to send me, oh, this is my favorite guy that does demos on YouTube. This is my favorite, the player that does these. Okay, I could break down and tell you, this is what he's doing in post-processing. This is what he's doing to his signal. This is not legit straight guitar signal. This is this much compression, I don't know that I could break it down number per number, but I could tell you probably most of the time what kind of post-processing and stuff is going on. And the bottom line is, a person in another type of YouTube video, not the kind that I make, is trying to make themselves sound as good as possible. Okay? Which makes total sense because they're trying to sell a product, right? I'm trying to sell pickups, but I'll explain why my approach is different. When you're playing with an effect, when you're playing with a new guitar, you're just trying to make that product look as good as possible, right? And so this guy's like, well, you're making that pickup sound bad so that yours sound as good as possible. Okay, that might be true, but we're not doing it intentionally because we're using the same exact settings across the board. If we use the same exact settings across the board and we keep a standard, then the weaknesses or strengths of a product automatically become apparent. If I were to make that artificial, it would completely kill my business. Because if I were to make the results artificial, you would have an expectation of what my product would do when you bought it. You would buy said product, and it would not live up to your expectations because I falsified the results. That does not serve me at all. So there's no point in me doing it. So that's why we don't do that. It's different when a guitar player is doing a review and they're like, they sent me this guitar, I just want to make it sound as good as possible because it's very cool. That's different than another one that might come into play. Let's say you have, what is a good review that I've done or that I've seen done? When you have two very, very similar guitars. Let's say you have a Epiphone Les Paul and a Gibson Les Paul, okay? Or you have let's say like a PRS Silver Sky SE and an American PRS Silver Sky, okay? Normally I would stop in the parking lot, but when I stop in the parking lot, the dang AC doesn't work, so I gotta keep driving. There's an example where it would behoove you as a reviewer, if you're doing a review on something like this, to have your settings a standard across the board so that you get an honest result. That's different than when you're saying, all right, I just want to show everybody how awesome this overdrive pedal is. Okay? That's different. You're doing a different thing. So the way we test on this channel is different. That's going to give you a different... It's just going to be different. And it's going to give you a video that may not live up to your expectations. So my question is, what do you want? Would you want a more produced, more artificial video? Or do you want honest results? I guess that's my question. Do you want an overproduced video that is, oh dang, that thing sounds awesome, but it is not, but it's an artificial result based on how it was produced in post? What do you want? Let me know. I want to know that in the comments. Also, ask another question for next week. These are interesting topics you guys are coming up with, and I really love them. So it's a great thing to think about. I guess these questions are very thoughtful, and the responses have to be very thoughtful too. It's super fun. Let's see. Yeah, that's all I got. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. Do all the things. Go to DylanTalksTone.com and buy pickups, because we honestly actually show them on the internet. Thanks for hanging out.